Yes, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Adapts Performance Podcast. It has been a little while. It has been a little while, actually. It feels like I'm a few words in. I already feel a little bit rusty, which is, it's interesting. I didn't really think I'd get like this, actually. It's not like I'm nervous, but, it's a skill. It's definitely a skill. It's like speaking in front of a camera. When you're on your own is really, really difficult. At least I find it difficult. It's something that I've had to try and practice with it. Anyway, so in terms of today, then I've got a few bits that I want to go through. I want to speak through match day or race day primers and just primers in general, give you a little bit of an overview of why we would do them, a little bit of the research, all that type of thing, but ultimately get into the practicalities of how you can use that in your own training. And then also just kind of touching on the topic of program hopping, which is essentially just going from program to program or almost being random in your programming decisions and just turning up and doing a bit of this, doing a bit of that. So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to speak about how I view those things and, some of the benefits, some of the drawbacks, and just get into the nitty gritty. I'm just going to turn that little, there we go. But yeah, you can tell I'm rusty. So what's been going on then? Yeah, so it's been a while since I've done a podcast. Mainly, we've just moved house, and I say just, it's been probably 6 weeks, and it's been a little bit hectic. We've been doing some decorating, we've been moving around. I'm getting the garage gym sorted, which is sick. I've got a garage door coming tomorrow. Just getting a roller door, which is going to create a little bit more space. It's just going to be a little bit easier. The one we've got at the moment is a little bit of a nightmare. So yeah, moving house, that was huge. We've made some huge changes to the Adapt Online S&C system, which I'm super, super buzzing about. It's taking a load of work, but what we're essentially doing is creating a system where the athletes that join us have an MDT. So an MDT meaning a multidisciplinary team. So you're not just getting an S&C coach anymore, which, is sick. That is the number one thing that people do come to us for, is for good training and making sure that they can perform on the field of play, in the ring, the court, whatever. But now we're going to give them options, okay? We're going to give them a psychologist. So we've got an expert psychologist that's going to be coming in, helping us out with delivering webinars on and workshops on mindset and dealing with anxieties and pre-performance routines and beliefs and finding flow state. We've had some already, which are absolutely sick. Really, really enjoy them. And the feedback's been mega, just in terms of how they've been able to apply that to their training, but also to competitions. So yeah, buzzing about that. Sarah's absolutely quality, loads of experience. We'll be bringing in a performance nutritionist shortly, which again, absolutely buzzing about. So same type of thing, just going to be on hand for people to get that expert advice from people that just do this day in, day out. So really happy with that. We're on a new programming app, which is quality. Adapt HQ, the community group is buzzing. I absolutely love it. The Friday reflections where we're going through what we've done well, what we need to improve on. Just generally, I'm buzzing. Like I said this before, it is literally the best job in the world and super fortunate to be in that situation. So yeah, it's moving house and then just making sure that I'm actually taking care of the athletes first and foremost. That's the number one. So yeah, what else? Oh, okay, this is probably an interesting one to talk through actually before we get into the actual topics. Is I caught a little bit of an injury last week. So 10 days ago, I was doing some tricep dips and they were heavy. They were 60 kilo. That's not uncharacteristically heavy for me. I am generally quite a good tricep dipper. And I think it was the fourth rep, I felt a little bit of a tweak in my pec. It was a pop, pop, pop. And, I'm not going to lie, I shat my pants. Not literally, but I wasn't far off. I was nervous, like to the point where I've never felt a pop, pop, pop before in my life. Like I've had some pretty, substantial injuries, but that was a super jarring experience for me. I had it on camera. And if I didn't have that on camera, I would not have believed that I got off the tricep dip bar and took the weights off and walked away. Like, because I don't remember it. It's like my brain just shut off. It was like pre-shock. I don't know. There was no pain. That's the interesting thing about it. There was no pain whatsoever. So in my mind, I thought, well, I've ruptured it. That's it. My boobs come off. Thought I'd gone like Larry Wheels style. I forgot the guy who was spotting. If you've seen that video of the incline bench press gone wrong, it is awful. And that's what I thought happened to me. Luckily not, though. So I had a physio appointment 2 days ago with one of the lads I coach, Ollie, who's an absolute wizard. He is a super nice guy, super smart guy, really good. Basically had a little bit of a checkup, did some muscle testing, some power testing, just to figure out where we're actually at, what was symptomatic, what wasn't. And essentially what we're thinking is it's a grade 1 to grade 2. So grade 1 being the least severe, grade 3 being the most severe. In terms of recovery time, this type of thing, we're talking 2 to 3 weeks after injury is probably going to be pain-free. And then another 3 weeks after that is going to be full power, kind of attacking training as normal. So that's good. Yeah, I guess I'll talk you through my rehab real quick. Well, the first thing to mention actually is my mindset with this type of thing is I went into tricep dips as like a little bit of a primary movement, even though I was doing it after other stuff in the workout. And my objective is with tricep dip is I've got like a number in mind, and that number is I want to reach a bodyweight tricep dip, which would be pretty huge. You don't see that too often, so that'd be about 90 kilo extra strapped on, which is it's a big old lump. It's not going to come easy. And my intention with this, even though I hate myself doing the exercise, I'm not going to stop that. I think that can quite often be people's first thought when they catch an injury on a certain, exercise or sport. It's like, I need to avoid that thing. It's not good for me. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. It's, in my mind, I need to conquer that, to be honest with you. And this isn't me being stubborn. Might be, but I don't think it is. It's, what? My body and everybody's body is not fragile. It will adapt. It will get stronger. That's it. I got an injury for whatever reason. We don't know if it was a warm up or, just jumped the weight too heavy, but it has happened. And there is no bad exercise. I do genuinely believe that. I think there were certain exercises that some people don't respond very well to based on biomechanics, technique, limb length, previous injury history, all that. But yeah, I'm not gonna run away from it. I am gonna rehab it really, really well and make sure I do a splendid job of that. But I will be back. And I still want that 90 kilo. Just may take me a little while to get there. And that 60 kilo as well, like it was such a good day. Like I was feeling mega. I did some bench press before, that was sound. Did some pull-ups, that was sound. Tricep dips, I would have done, if I had not hit myself on the 4th rep, I would have done 8 reps with it, because it was feeling, sick. But here we are. So in terms of the rehab then, what we're looking at, I'm a week on. The first couple of days, I was icing the area just to get rid of any inflammation, swelling, just stop it from kind of overreacting. The rehab is essentially twice a day. I'm going through 3 to 4 exercises that are focusing on gaining isometric strength in a super shortened position. So that's my arm coming across my body, super lengthened position. So think kind of a classic doorway stretch where you've got your arm outstretched and you've got a big pec, a lot of pec length going on. So pushing against it, trying to create some isometric force. We're also doing some essentially wall press ups in a slightly different position, but going through eccentric, concentric. And that's all fine. There's a little bit of nipping occasionally, but it's all right. It's not bad. It's nothing to worry about, but I could tolerate a 2 or a 3 out of 10. That's what Ollie said. And on a side note, okay, this is totally led by physio. Okay, we need to make sure if we do get an injury that we do go through that same process. Don't wing it. Okay, I know people are like, oh, I don't want to spend money on a physio. I get it. If you're skin, it's totally understandable. However, if you're out on a weekend getting absolutely smashed and you're spending money on trainers and all this type of thing, then, saying how it is, I think it's a priority thing. 40 quid, it may just mean that you can get back to training well and do it efficient and all that stuff. So yeah, side note with that. So that's the rehab. Probably do this for another week. Then I'm going to speak to Ollie, see where we're at. He'll probably give me the next set. And throughout this, we're trying to, I have range of motion. I'm not lacking anything. Regain strength. Okay. So regaining that peak strength and that ability to withstand force. And then the end point for us is ultimately getting back to what I want to do. But I'm not going to neglect the plyometric based exercise. I know plyometrics don't always apply perfectly to upper body because plyometric needs a takeoff and a landing. And And even though you can do it, it's probably not true plyometric in the way that we think about it with lower body stuff. But getting back to explosive press ups and depth drops from a really high box and just being able to stick that land in and get the pec to be able to deal with high amounts of force, of eccentric force, but doing it super, super quick. Okay. That's really when you're going to test it. So yeah, that's the rehab then. Next step is essentially get to Monday, recheck in, how we doing? It'll give me the next bits, okay? And that'll happen every step of the way. In terms of lifestyle, what am I doing to make sure that I'm in a good position? Well, hammer protein, hammer sleep, hammer hydration, as always. I'm always pretty good with those things, but protein more so. I've upped it a little bit just to make sure that we are preserving muscle, even though I am training everything else around. In terms of the actual training, well, to be fair, my upper body days are going to be a little bit more reduced. You know, I can still shoulder press. I can still do lateral raises. I can still do everything except for a chest press or a fly or a press up or anything like that on that left side. So I'm still attacking my right side stuff. Okay. The cross education effect, I may have spoke about this in the past, but the ability for me to press with my good side, and that is going to help me keep muscle mass around on my injured side. It's going to allow me to keep some central nervous system activation and still keep strength around on that injured side as well. So it's worth doing. And everyone's like, oh, you're going to create imbalances, you know, just from using one side over the other. We are asymmetrical beings, okay? We are not perfectly symmetrical, and you know, our lifestyle just means that we're not as well. You're right-handed, and the nature of having an injury is, look, reality is that you are probably going to be asymmetrical for a little bit anyway. That is the way it is. I'd much rather have, you know, one strong pec than no strong pecs. So yeah, I'm hammering upper body stuff as normal, probably put the volume up just a little bit more actually, because one of the largest stimuli that I would have in my training week from an upper body perspective would be my bench press, it would be my tricep dips, and it would be my pull-ups, which I actually can't do because they're a little bit tight through that area. So I'm missing a big part of training, which means because I don't have that intensity, I don't have that need to... Yeah, I'm missing that little bit. So I can push everything else a little bit more with a little bit higher volume, a little bit higher intensity, because I don't have to throw recovery resources. The brain, the body doesn't need to throw it towards that bench press, that stimulus. I'm going to have a little bit more to throw to other stuff. So hammer the arms, hammer the shoulders, hammer the back work that I can do. And then lower body stuff, I'm probably pushing that a little bit more as well. One of the things you want to be careful of, I've made this mistake in the past, is when I hurt my hip. So when I did my hip injury, I was using crutches for about 6 weeks. So I couldn't train lower body other than the good side. I was like, well, you know, I still want to train often. So I'm just going to split my upper body days into push-pull. So I'd do push on a Monday, pull on a Tuesday. I'd have Wednesday off, push, pull on Thursday, Friday. Okay, well done, dumbass. What you've actually done is you've absolutely, for lack of a better word, you've absolutely shagged your shoulders and your elbows, okay? So I've gone from twice a week of pressing and pulling, an elbow load and shoulder load, to now doing it 4 times a week, still attacking the volume pretty high, but I was also putting crutches, you know, moving around on top of that. So I developed a little bit of tendonitis, a little bit of tendinopathy. My elbows felt really angry at me for making a poor decision. But the thing is, you know what? I could have been fine. And you never really know where that line is until you cross it. So you just need to hope that you haven't crossed it in a brutal way. So yeah, I need to make sure I don't go crazy with the lower body training volume as well. Like, you don't need to go into anything mad, but you can maybe up it a few sets. Okay. If that feels okay, you can up it a few sets again. Slow and steady wins the race with this, particularly when we start thinking about adaptations, and they do creep up on you, to be honest with you. I think overuse injuries do creep up on you. You don't know about it until it's like a little bit of a, doesn't feel great. Then it feels bad. And then, oh shit, like I've got some rehab on my hands. So yeah, just be careful with that if you're kind of going through something similar. Right, I'm into it now. Okay, started off feeling really awkward behind the camera, and I've just chatted 15 minutes about something that I wasn't actually going to speak about. So there we go. Yeah, it is what it is. You know, injuries happen. You will get injuries, and they don't need to be villainized at all as well. Like, it is just one of those things. And the side note, and when a coach has an injury, I actually see it as a really positive thing, because you get to go through a rehab process, and actually learn it step by step and get a really good understanding of what your athletes are going through. I thought that with my hip. I've done my ankle. I've had a shoulder issue a long time ago. Same thing. It's all just like building up the skills a little bit. So yeah, there's my pec. Anyway, so going on to the actual topic of today, what I wanted to speak about more so was around primers, okay? And what is a priming session, and what is the use of them? And essentially what a priming session is it uses the concept of post-activation potentiation, which is essentially tricking your brain and your body into giving you greater access to higher outputs. Okay, so there's a little bit of a central nervous system trick. And usually how that works is by performing something heavy, okay, resting for a little bit of time, and then doing something light. So a heavy back squat, rest for a little bit, and then do a counter movement jump. Okay, so like contrast training, that is using the PAP principle, post-activation potentiation principle. And primers work in a very similar way. What we're essentially trying to do is facilitate your brain and your central nervous system, your body, to give you access to greater outputs. It is a neurological thing. Okay, we want greater outputs. And generally, when you do a primer session, you're looking at doing it up to 4 hours before your competition. Okay, and there's even been some results shown 48 hours before, so 2 days before. And to be fair, most of the time when I do use these, it is the day before. So we're talking 24 hours. And, you know, some of the research, there's been plus 5 to 10% increases in performance related tests. Okay. You know, so things like your counter movement jump, your peak power, your sprint testing, that type of thing. So you can get an extra 5 to 10% on these types of things just from doing a short and sweet session the day before. And it's worth doing, in my opinion, if you have the training time available and you're not afraid of kind of trying something new and seeing if it works for you. It might not, but you know what? More often than not, I do think it actually works for most people. So it's worth trying, in my opinion. So some of the other things that people kind of are unsure about when it comes to priming sessions is what is the actual mechanism? Why do people feel good doing that? Why does it unlock a little bit of extra? And there's speculation around hormones. Okay, does it promote increased growth hormone production, testosterone production? Does it down regulate, you know, I'm not going to say there's harmful hormones, but ones that are not necessarily productive? So there's a little bit of speculation around that. I don't actually know. And I think sometimes we don't need to know the exact reason. We just need to know if it works or not, okay, and understand enough of it so we can make good programming decisions. So yeah, there we are. And I think, honestly, like I use them with rugby players quite a lot, American football players quite a lot. So game before primer, and usually for us, well, actually, I'll get into that in a little bit, but I think everybody says that they feel better, and they just feel like they don't need to get as warm. And I don't mean that in the sense of they don't need to warm up on game day, but it doesn't take them 5 to 10 minutes of the actual game to get into it. They start playing and performing from the first minute. Okay. It just gives them that ability to go through the gears so much faster. Okay. So essentially what we've got there is an extra 5 to 10% in your performance metrics. Brilliant. It means that you can go through the gears a little bit faster. You don't waste the first few minutes just getting a feel for the game. You're ready to go. And same thing is people come out with slightly different comments on what it does for them. But usually is I just felt sick. I just felt like on it. And I think there's going to be, I do wonder if there is a psychological primer element, like your ability to be, well, reaction times, you know, is it something to do with reaction times? I'm not sure, but I think there could be something in that. But most of the research and most of the reason people use them is purely from a physical standpoint. So let's get into how you actually use them then. And some of the things you want to be aware of is when you go in the gym and you train, essentially what you're doing, if you do a decent-ish session, is you will be causing some fatigue, okay? You don't want to cause fatigue with a priming session. There will always be a little bit, but you want to leave the priming session feeling like you've got so much more to give and you actually feel better leaving the gym than when you went in. That is super important. Okay. We don't want you leaving as if you've just done a standard lower body and, a lower body day, limping. We don't want any of that. We don't really want any metabolic fatigue or buildup of waste products or anything like that. So yeah, you want to be mindful that you're not just layering fatigue on the day before a game, which you can see how would be a common pushback of doing primers. So how you want to approach it then is we want low risk, okay? We don't want this to be a risky situation. Everything you do in your priming session needs to be pre-rehearsed. They need to be exercises that you've done 1,000,001 times before. And realistically, when I do a primer, the exercises that feature in that session also feature in the program as a whole, okay? And we're talking like, the way I do them mostly is I will use some jumping, some medicine ball throws, and a lightly loaded, most of the time it's lightly loaded. So, if it's a trap bar jump, it might be 10 kilo on each side, which is fine for, a lot of the rugby guys and American football guys, but also a lot of the fighters. It needs to be low risk. It needs to be something you're well versed in so that technical breakdown is not going to be an issue. Okay. The important thing about that as well is if it's already in your program, which is, realistically my preference, is how somebody's going to adapt to them relatively well. If you go into the gym and you do something completely new, then you're playing with fire. Okay. You really are playing with fire. And that is, in my mind, it's not really great strength and conditioning practice. It needs to be quite methodical is the way I would describe it. So yeah, it needs to be low risk. And okay, just to give you an example of some of the priming sessions I would do for people. Go in, do a full warm-up, okay? Full body warm-up, get moving. There's going to be benefits to that in itself. You're going to have some mobility, you're going to have some blood flow, there's going to be some endorphins, there's going to be some positive, happy hormones flowing through your bloodstream. You're going to feel amazing, okay? Now let's stack some things on that get you really firing. Let's get you poppy. Okay, so if we take rugby or American football, for example, okay, they're kind of a mixture of like a speed athlete because they do a lot of sprinting, but they also have a strength component in there as well. So I like to try and merge those two qualities a little bit. And there is a little bit of research that says that there are different types of primers and certain ones work better for certain types of athletes. So some people may, if they're more of a force dominant athlete, they're quite strengthy, give them some strength stimulus in that primer session. If you're more of a speed dominant athlete, okay, well, let's do a little bit more speed stuff in there just to really tick that box for you as an individual. I'm not sure, actually. I couldn't really give you a thought, but I do try and marry up activating and priming the muscles and patterns that I think they are going to be using in their sport. Okay. So for example, rowing. Okay. Rowing is one of the teams that I look after, City of Sheffield Rowing. If I was going to do a priming session for them, which I do, it's very lower body and there is a pull component to it as well. I'm not really going to waste too much of my time doing a pushing based movement for them. There's probably good rationale for it, but I would rather focus on counter movement jumps, broad jumps, so a vertical and a horizontal based jumping pattern. I would also do a slightly loaded variation as well, and then I would do some form of explosive pulling for the upper body. And I'm playing around with a few different options here, like getting them on the erg. Okay, so getting them on the row machine and doing a few explosive strokes on that. So getting them really kind of ragging it, trying to rack up as many meters as possible, whether that is just lower body or it is arms only. Okay, you have options. I've used medicine ball work there as well. So like slamming, which is a very, lat dominant pattern if you kind of keep the hips pretty still, but also if you don't keep the hips still. So that is how I would do it. So 4 exercises, 3 to 4 exercises, 3 to 4 sets of, traditional kind of power-based exercise prescription between 1 rep and 6 reps for the most part. Okay, so very powery. A normal session might last 30 minutes, okay, something like that. It is short and it is sweet. It needs to be. We don't want fatigue. We want to get in, get out. If I was going to do more of a priming session for rugby or American football, just because they're on the top of my head, actually. So I keep using those as an example. So apologies if you are not from that sport, but hopefully you can see how this does translate and you can start to pull apart your sport a little bit more. So yeah, in terms of in terms of rugby and American football, I might do some heavier loaded trap bar jump. Okay, I might go 60 kilo, 100 kilo. I don't mind. Something that is a little bit more force dominant. If they are into Olympic lifting, I might do a little bit of Olympic lifting. I might do some clean pulls, a derivative of the Olympic lifts. I might do some bench press. I might do, a relatively heavy set of bench press. I might do bench throws, so throwing the barbell, some explosive press ups. I might do some sprinting. I might not do loads, but I might do a bit. I could do some sled pushes. Okay, just thinking about things that are going to thinking about exercises that get people absolutely firing. That is the thought there. Okay. Are there people that don't like them? Nobody said they didn't feel good, actually. I haven't had a negative to it, but I do think sometimes they are just not on the cards because, one, you have to go into the gym. Okay. So if you can not go into the gym, some people would prefer that and they just rather rest up. And that is a valid strategy as well. Is just going into the gym, just not training. That's going to help that recovery piece. But I do think getting a little bit of blood flow, a little bit of firing up is a good idea. Okay. So there's some thoughts around primers. Fighters. Okay. So this is probably a slightly different topic, but I sometimes do not love them for fighters. The reason being, if they are weight cutting or water cutting, I find that because they're going to be in a state where dehydration has taken place, I don't know if we're playing with a little bit of fire sometimes doing a priming session. Obviously, you can decide how much you actually do in that session. It doesn't need to be full pelt. A little bit works better than none, probably. However, it depends. I've done them with some. I don't do them with others. I just think we're potentially playing with a little bit of fire at times. But, saying that, okay, who doesn't want 5 to 10% increase in outputs? And if that's what the research is saying, cool. It's definitely worth considering. And, even if what we're basically using there is post-activation potentiation, right? Okay. You still get PAP. You still get that if you just do a really good warm-up, okay? Nice solid warm-up on the day of competition, okay? So you go through like a RAMP protocol, which is, if people don't know what RAMP is, it is a warm-up strategy, which is raise, so raising heart rate, getting blood flow, activate relevant muscle groups, mobilize relevant muscle groups and, areas of that need mobilizing, and then potentiate, which is your jumps, your sprints, your throws, whatever that is. You still get benefits of doing that immediately before competition. I don't think it's actually as much as 5 to 10%, but honestly, I'm not too sure. I think the research is really a little bit iffy. Post-activation potentiation was the golden child for a little while. I did my master's study in that actually. No, it wasn't my master's, it was my bachelor's. Okay, so there's a little bit on primers, but if you have any questions on that, give us a shout. Like, absolutely, off the back of these podcasts, quiz me on it. Ask me what my thoughts are on certain things. I love just having these conversations, and people have different points of view, and that's cool as well. Like, we can disagree, and we can still be mates, and that's cool because I might learn something from you, you might learn something from me. It's worth trying. Right then, there it is. That's primers. Something to play around with. Moving on to the next bit, which is, it's not really, it is an S&C topic, but it's more just kind of a philosophy around training, I guess. And that is the program hopping piece. So program hopping, essentially what it means is just going from program to program without ever completing it, having a little bit of a lack of direction in your training. I think it comes from a lot of the time, but never seeing a program all the way through. Okay, so you never actually see the fruits of your loins. Yeah, that's the one. You never actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I used to be a little bit of a program hopper. When I was a little bit younger, I did it. It was like magpie syndrome. I just saw something shiny that I was reading about. I was like, I need to do that. That's the thing. That is the thing. And it's really not the thing. But what I don't like about program hopping or not having a program in place and just kind of going a bit willy-nilly and random with your training is the unpredictability of the adaptations that you are creating. Okay. And don't get me wrong, we probably can go into the gym and apply a strength stimulus. You go in, you lift something pretty heavy for a certain amount of sets and a certain amount of reps. You will get stronger at that thing. And you know, it's okay. That's absolutely fine. But I think if you're an athlete and you're going through the effort to, really push your performance forward from a training perspective, it is your thing. You want to get better at your thing. I would just advise against program hopping. Okay. Get yourself an S&C program, get yourself an S&C coach. Okay. I say that I say it without what's the word here? I'm not trying to be a nose, but I'm saying bloody get an S&C coach. It helps. And speak to anybody that's got an S&C coach. They'll just say, right, it just takes all the decisions out of it. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to go through the research. I turn up and I do a good job. But yeah, unpredictability of the adaptation is a big thing. Okay, making sure that you are applying the correct stressors at the right time relative to your competition schedule and your playing and your training schedule in the week. It's important. Okay. And it's fine that you might just do training because you enjoy it and you put enjoying training and the novelty of training above wanting to perform maximally. Okay. And, you may only lose 10%, you may lose 50%, you may lose 90% of your performance capacity because you program hop. We don't know. We couldn't put a number to it. However, it's okay if you just like trying new shit as well, and that is definitely, I say that with an honest heart here. It's okay to just want to go in the gym and do a bit and turn up and see what machines are available, and you saw some on Instagram and you want to give it a go. And that is why I feel CrossFit is so popular, because the novelty, people like to be entertained, people like to do new shit. And that's cool. I don't think it's the best way of training. Absolutely not. But I do think it is a valid strategy, particularly if you're not an athlete as well. I think if you are just a serious trainer and you just love training, you love everything about it, fuck it, play around. Absolutely. That's cool. But what you are doing, and this is one of the criticisms of CrossFit as well, is because it's all novel stuff, it's new stuff, you get really sore, particularly if you're going to do, Murph, for example. What was that? 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 press-ups, 300 bodyweight squats, and another mile run. Yeah, you're not going to do that often because you're just going to induce a shitload of muscle damage, a shitload of fatigue. As much as it is really fun to do and it does get you buzzing to be a part of something bigger, it's going to make you sore. Okay, good luck playing or training the next day. So you probably just sacrificed a little bit of an opportunity to get better, actually. And you know what? Right, here's a good one for you. So me and I don't know if they actually listen to my podcast. If they do, they can give me a shout. So one of the gyms I train at, Steel Physique, I was speaking to some of the boys, Dom and Cole, around finishers. So I put up a post around finishers a while ago, just saying how I think it's a bit mad in my mind that an athlete, okay, and I am speaking specifically to athletes here, okay, that you will go through the effort of trying to control every variable, okay, sleeping 100% and, controlling your diet, controlling your acute to chronic work rest ratio, and just making sure that you are not getting injured. You're ticking all the boxes from a technology standpoint and really obsessing over the nitty gritty and putting all this time into your program and the sets and the reps to then get 20 minutes towards the end of a workout and be like, right, it's time for a finisher. And you just do something mad and you do some med ball throws and burpees and rowing machine and just plucking a thing out of midair just to make you tired. Okay. If you're general population, or again, you value enjoyment over the actual results, that's cool, different. But if you are an athlete that's trying to control the nitty gritty and every single thing, don't be random about it. And I was speaking to them about it. They had, to be fair, I think they had similar views, because they're both really smart guys and they had some really good pushbacks in certain directions with that. But we also deal with slightly different populations. They have more general population and, people that are more strength athletes as opposed to, field sport or combat or anything like that. So, yeah, I just think program hopping just leaves too much to chance, to be honest with you. And there is elements of my program that I do build in a little bit of free time. And I do that with athletes sometimes as well. And I think this is context just applies to everything. 99% of the time I will program something specific for people, but I'll give them options as well. Here's an optional arms session or an optional arms section. Okay, at the end of your upper body day, you've got 3 things to choose from there, and it'll be something that's super pumpy. Do the same with conditioning. If it gives them an opportunity to be in control a little bit, that's cool. People like choice sometimes. But yeah, don't go from powerlifting program to powerlifting program to then do a bit of this, then do a bit of that, is my thoughts. I welcome pushback on that as well. And so, okay, here's another one that I've heard, because I've spoke about this before, and somebody said, well, what about, anything's better than nothing? And what was the other one? So it's anything's better than nothing. And the other thing, the worst program performed with 100% intensity and adherence is better than the best program performed 0. And unpicking both of those things, I think they're really nice from one standpoint. But the first one where it said, anything is better than nothing. I don't necessarily agree. There is a negative effect of training as well. You can cause a shitload of fatigue. You can catch an injury. You can be ingrained in bad movement patterns. You can be feeding a problem. Okay. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think that, this is not meant to sound discouraging, but I do think you can make yourself worse or a worse athlete with bad training, 100%. So yeah, it's one of those. I'm obviously of that opinion and probably quite adamant in that opinion, even though I do think that there are options and there are times when you would kind of build in a little bit of freedom. One of the lads at the moment is one of the Adapt lads. He's had a little bit of bad luck, actually. So his fight has just been called off this weekend. So he found out on 5 days notice, the opponent pulled out. And they can't find a replacement, so they're just kind of pulling them from the card. So what we've basically said is, look, the rest of this week, take a bit of time just to kind of gather your thoughts, because no doubt you're really frustrated. We've put a good 8 to 12 weeks into this camp. He's going to be annoyed. But I also said to him, look, over this week and the start of next week, when we get a good program review in and we chat about our goals going forwards, play around, okay? I will give you something if you want something. Absolutely. I'm happy to write that down. But I do find that occasionally people do value a little bit of freedom, a little bit of autonomy, just to be like, okay, I want to do a bit of this. I haven't benched in a while. I haven't done this. It's training's for life. It really is one of those things. You need to enjoy it. No, actually, I think you're going to do better if you enjoy elements of training. Don't get me wrong, you will not enjoy every single bit, but I think finding certain threads of your training that you can do for long periods of time is super important. So yeah, right. I waffled there, and I'm not even going to say that I didn't. I'm not even going to say that's because I've had some time off, because that is me as a person when I get into this stuff. However, I will challenge anybody that thinks I'm a waffler to do a 38-minute podcast speaking to themselves and see how you get on. Because yeah, it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. But anyway, right. So that's today's then. So chatted through my pec, okay, the rehab for that. If you've got any questions, give us a shout. If you're going through something similar, give us a shout. We went through priming sessions. Again, give them a go. Absolutely try it. We want it to be low risk. Use exercises that you've done before. Absolutely. And then we went through program and hop in. So if you're an athlete or a serious trainer that is just kind of winging it, there's a better way. And I am super confident in that. And just to wrap up then, we are going to be releasing some new slots. Well, actually, when this podcast comes out, that is when there'll be some new slots available for our online S&C program. Super happy with it. Like I said before, the upgrades. But yeah, so without further ado, that is the end of the podcast. Thank you very much, guys. I will speak to you soon.